can give people all the best strategies and we can tailor them to each person. And not that's not an important piece, but setting your life up in a way that you can do more of what lights you up and less of what sucks the life out of you and kills your soul. Like that is the big thing. We want to create this ADHD life that makes sense for us rather than continuing to live this way that everyone, probably the neurotypical folks in our life, nothing bad against them, but they probably told us to live that way, or society did in one way or another. Hi, I'm Jen Barnes, and you're about to experience how to ditch the old ways of doing things, embrace your neurodivergence, learn tips and tricks to function optimally, and love yourself, neurodivergence and all. Welcome to the Self-Loved Woman podcast. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so excited for today's episode. We have our first guest introducing Liz Fiorino, who's going to be talking to us today about some of her ADHD journey. And so I'll let her introduce herself. I'm so excited for this conversation. And so Liz, take it away.
Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm so happy you're here.
For everybody listening, I'm nobody.
That's not true. That's not true.
I know. I met Jen on a wonderful place called Instagram, which I'm sure everybody here is familiar with. But I call myself a writer, a creator, and a mom. I'm actually a strategic communications professional with 15 years of experience in marketing, PR, internal communications, writing, community relations. But really at heart, I'm a writer. And I had an interesting last year, which we can get into, but it kind of led to a lot of soul searching. And that's where I found myself an online community on Instagram and where I met an awesome person like you. And I'm just really happy to be here and be able to talk about my story. But that community is the ADHD community, of course. And I just found out I am part of it, even though I've obviously been part of it my whole life. I finally now have words and a language around the things that have impacted me throughout my life. So I'm really excited to just learn more about myself, learn more about our community, and share my experience with everybody.
That's so awesome. I'm so grateful that you're here, and how fun, like just randomly like meeting on Instagram and following each other. It's just so fun, right? It's so great to have you here. Okay. So I want to dig into it because I wanted to have Liz on because she has a pretty amazing story. She might not think it's amazing. I find her story amazing and inspiring because a lot of times when us ADHDers bump into struggles, we can crumble and fall apart and feel like crap. And maybe, I don't know, you can share how much that happened, but also to me, it's really a story of you rising up, almost like a phoenix, right? It's okay, here we go. And maybe you weren't totally burned. I don't know. You can unpack more.
I think the crumble is actually part of it. I think the burning down to rebuild is definitely part of the process. Yes, I had a rough 2000 and I guess rough start to 2023. And I had struggled in 2022 as well, just being super busy, super burnt out at my job. I was working so much. I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. I felt like I wasn't getting any recognition for my hard work. And I almost was like, what am I doing? I'm spinning my wheels.
Right.
And that's what led me to think there's something else going on here. I need to keep digging. I had been on a mental health journey since I became a mom, just figuring out like, what am I dealing with? And I had been told for more than a decade, hey, you just have regular old anxiety and go to therapy and figure it out. And honestly, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, just didn't really work for me. They were like, you need to pause and think about what you're going to do and then frame it this way and then do it. And I'm like, there's no time.
You're like, that's not working out for me. That's not how my brain works.
Happens and I have an impulse and I go. And that kind of made me think like, oh, I might not have impulse control. I might have something else happening here. So it was honestly a combination of a therapist who said, I think you should maybe get formally assessed for
Yeah.
ADHD,
Yeah.
and content that I was consuming on the internet that made me self-diagnose. I think this could be an answer for me. And then I did go get formally assessed, and they said, you have primarily inattentive ADHD. And what that's like to hear as an adult, like so many emotions come at you. You're
I'm
like,
sure.
angry. Why did nobody notice this? Or grieving. You're shocked. You're a little shameful. You're relieved. I was
Yeah.
so relieved to have an
Yeah.
answer.
Right.
So many emotions came over me. But then it was like I turned to my job and was like, okay, now I'm going to rock this. Now I know myself. Now I'm going to really climb. And
Right.
then I got hit with layoffs in
Uh,
February of this year.
yeah.
And it just felt like the rug was pulled out from under me. I
Ugh.
thought I finally figured out who I was. I finally figured out what my strengths and weaknesses were. This was part of my plan for personal and professional development, was to understand myself. I finally felt like I did,
Yeah.
and I didn't get the chance to prove myself. And so much of with ADHD, we blame ourselves and we think about, what if I had been better at putting together outlines? Or what if I didn't send
Right.
that snarky email? I'm thinking of all the things that I did
Yep.
that could have caused me to be the one that they picked to be let go. Honestly, it's a reorg. I never had anything but good reviews, but it's confused. Like in
Your brain goes there.
2022, I honestly was picked to go to a leadership conference. I got a 5-figure bonus from this same company.
Oh
And
my
then in
gosh.
the next year, they said, we don't have room for you. So to me, I just felt blindsided and hurt. And you sit on the couch for weeks and you say, I'm a loser, and
Right.
it's embarrassing. But then
Hard.
you realize all the things that you have in your arsenal to recover from that. And one of those things was community. And I
Yeah.
really am so happy that I dove headfirst into that Instagram community and found people who understand me, who made me feel capable, who made me feel
Mm.
supported, who made me feel normal.
Yeah.
And that was probably the single biggest thing for me, was that community. And then the two other, I had the 3 C's of my healing journey,
The 3 C's. I love it.
was my creativity. So I
Uh-huh.
started writing all the time. I was
Oh.
reading. I haven't read in years.
Well, yeah, you're probably so
I joined a
busy
book
trying to
club.
function with
Right.
ADHD.
I never had time for hobbies because I
Right.
was just so obsessed with my job being my whole identity.
Right.
And I was like painting again and like
Oh,
just dancing and laying on the couch watching movies all day. And that to me was like a really key part of tuning into myself and what lights me up and what is important to me. I allowed myself to explore my creativity and then my connections. With ADHD, we tend to have out of sight, out of mind. So you
yeah.
feel alone sometimes. Like I don't have anybody to turn.
Totally.
It's funny, on like your birthday on Facebook, people come out of the woodwork from hundreds of
Right.
years ago saying like, happy birthday. And you're like, they even still think about me?
We're like, wow, I'm surprised they remember who I am. Like,
Exactly. But I swallowed my pride and I posted on LinkedIn to say, anybody is aware of any opportunities, please share within your network, because I was part of some corporate layoffs and I had so many people want to help me. And I think that's
oh,
something we forget, that like people want to help.
that's
So
right.
I would just
Right,
keep that in
Liz.
mind if you're in a similar situation, that don't be ashamed to ask for help or lean on people, or yeah, you haven't talked to them in 10 years. It's okay. They would love to hear from you. And I just did so many lunch dates and coffees, and saying yes to things led to different opportunities. And I just think the more you say yes, the more doors open for you. So
Well, and I
my
think,
community, creativity, and my connections were the 3 things that like made me not fall off a cliff.
right. And a lot of times, my podcast from last week, community and connection can be hard for ADHD. Like you said, for sure, with the kind of out of sight, out of mind. That for sure is a piece of it. I think a lot of times there's all this additional work we put into functioning in our regular job that isn't designed for our ADHD beautifulness, our ADHD brains. And a lot of times, I don't know about you, but I can just be so tired that the thought of connecting with anyone at the end of the day, I just need to go home.
Yeah, I think it's honestly the hurdle of getting there. Because
Yeah.
when I think about going to lunch with someone, it sounds like torture. And I don't mean
Right.
that offensive to the people I'm going with. It
No,
just
but that's
who you
so
are.
much.
I could
That's so
love you. It
true.
feels like torture. But once I'm there, then like the energy of being there lights me up and I get excited. And then I come home and I'm energized. So maybe this
Exactly.
is like bad advice, but just go. Even if you don't want to, just
Right.
go.
I
You'll be
actually
glad you did.
I actually think that's what we need to do sometimes. It's just like,
Yeah.
you know what? And for me, I really put a lot of emphasis on future self. Like, how is my future self going to feel? If I go, I'm actually going to love it and I'm going to feel better after, right? And that's true of whether we're going to lunch with a friend, whether we're going to, I don't know, like an event at the in Loring Park. My office is across from Loring Park, so that's why I'm saying Loring Park for those of you in Minnesota. Liz, you don't know where that is. It's in Minneapolis. Whether I'm going to an art event that's I'm like, oh, that art crawl thing looks cool. Or even like things like going to the gym or doing your morning writing when you're not up to it. So much of it's, yeah, you want to honor your energy levels. And also sometimes it's think about how much better you're going to feel after. Think about how
Yeah,
much
you have to
fun
think
you're
about
going
the
to.
end reward.
Yeah, it's think about how much fun it's going to be to connect with this person. If your relationship isn't great with the person, I'm not suggesting you lie to yourself. Well, if you're like, hey, this will be fun, I'll feel energized. We get to have a conversation, right? It's, oh, yeah, maybe I just need to make myself go. I just need to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like putting on your big girl pants and doing it. And I
Yeah.
got a little obsessed, I would say, in the beginning of just, okay, I have to find another job. And
Oh,
then
right.
I got offered another job and then it was nothing that I wanted. And I'm like, so
Oh,
this is bad. I now am I forced to take a job I don't want or don't have a job. And then I was like, all right, I need to really focus on what I want to do. So I mentioned the soul searching part of this. It was like I sat down and I made a list of all the things that I was most proud of from my career, the things that really lit me up, like the work that mattered.
yeah.
What work was I doing that made me feel most like me? And what are my deal breakers? And is that PTO? Is it having time in my schedule to be able to write? Is it working from home? I had to make those lists. And then I was able to actually apply to jobs that I cared about.
That's
Um,
so lovely.
yeah, I actually went through several job hunting cycles and I was so exhausted after the first one. And then I'm like, I did all that work and I didn't even end up with a job I liked. That was a big learning for me. It was like I needed to really connect to what I wanted. And I ended up finding another job that is for a nonprofit. That was what I
Oh,
found in soul searching is that I want to help people. I didn't want to just go to work and feel like I wasn't helping people. That matters.
I think
And
that's
then
common with ADHD.
I think it is. I think there's an empathy thing that we just can't help ourselves.
Yeah.
So I find meaning in that.
Yeah.
And you can figure out how to make meaning out of whatever job you're doing and how it helps people because everything helps people. But I needed to find something with true meaning for me. And then the other piece was I will never just put all my eggs in one basket again. I will never
Oh,
allow my job to be my whole identity ever again because it was. And when I lost it, I felt like I wasn't a person. And that's not
oh.
okay.
No,
That was,
that's not
you
okay.
know, my
How
whole being,
devastating.
my whole self-confidence, everything was that.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. So now I have a bunch of other stuff going on. I also work for myself. I'm a freelancer.
Oh, that's so
Um,
great.
I also post on Instagram, and I think that's fun. And who
Super
knows where that
fun.
will
If you haven't
land.
followed, by the way, just a little thing here. If you haven't followed Lizzie Got a Brain, like she's got it in her background, it's amazing. But if you haven't, if you're able to see the video, but if you haven't caught her on Instagram, you got to go find her. Her posts are fantastic. So I just have to say, I can really feel your creativity shine out there. It's, oh yeah.
Thank
And,
you.
and you get it. You're like, oh yeah. Like
I
I
try to like not, I'm not trying to sell people something. I'm not trying to like
right.
be an expert on anything.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is what I found on Instagram, which was like commiseration, a little bit of
Yeah.
laughing at ourselves, a little bit of just feeling normal because somebody else can relate.
Right.
And yeah, so if you're looking for humor and relatability, I might share a few coping tips or a nice quote here and there, but really it's just verbal diarrhea on the internet for me.
Isn't that what most of us ADHD creators end up putting out there?
Absolutely. I think, yeah, it's just like
I mean,
me.
no
If you're in a
offense to any of
conversation with
us.
me, but in Instagram form, it's I will tell you my
Right.
whole. You will know everything about me by the end of it.
Right. It's so beautiful that you saw what was helpful for you and then you're creating that for other people, like really paying that forward. And again, that connection is so important. It is essential to us being able to first of all just enjoy life, but also heal and grow. Especially with other ADHD people. I think sometimes it can be hard to do this all on our own.
Yeah.
And we can feel like we're just this oddball out who everyone is annoyed at or frustrated with, or maybe we're frustrated and annoyed at. So I just think that's such a gift. Yeah. So you shared a little bit about your process, and I love the soul searching process. I think that is it's just so amazing because a lot of times with ADHD, we just do what we think we're supposed to do, which is to have a job. But not all jobs are spectacular for our ADHD. They don't play to our strengths and they emphasize our limitations, right? If there's a lot of administrative tasks in something, that's not going to be an ideal job for most ADHDers. It's just we can do it, but it sucks the life out of us, right? And so I guess what I'm wondering is what advice do you have for people who might be in the same boat, who are facing layoffs or finding dissatisfaction in their current job, maybe trying to search for what they want to do next? What do you recommend for them? What advice do you have?
I think it's just listen to yourself. Get to know yourself as much as you can. What makes you smile? What lights you up? For me, it was writing. And as long as I can go to work every day and write something, I'm happy. And I think another thing is like our jobs also don't have to be our end all be all. Like maybe your job is just the thing you do to make money. And that's okay. Like just go make the money, but make sure it enables you to be able to do what makes you happy in the rest of your life.
That's a good point.
Just going to work every day and you're making money and then you're spending all your time and energy doing that, then you're not going to be happy. So that was another thing I also realized was like, I could get a job that I'm very, very happy doing, but I don't want that to be my purpose in life. My job will never be my purpose in life.
Yeah.
So I would say that but if you like yoga, then maybe look into doing yoga for a living. If you like writing, how can you write to help other people? If you like coaching, then how can you mentor and coach others and use the internet to be able to do that? I think there's a lot of really cool opportunities out there to be an entrepreneur, and you can do multiple things. Like we could all have a few side gigs going, and that's okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's a good point is we can do multiple things, and our main source of income doesn't always have to be our passion project. But it can be. Like we can I'm a clinical social worker and I love helping people. I call myself a professional helper. And whether I'm in my ADHD business or I'm in my private practice, I love helping and I have passion in that. But that's not the only thing I'm passionate about. Like I'm passionate about yoga. I love my gosh, I love to dance. Like, right. And so I find ways. I do Zumba most mornings and bar on the other ones. And I take a tap dance class on Wednesday nights. So like I find ways to really just embrace that passion. And yeah, there are times when I made money off of being a group fitness instructor or teaching yoga, but in all honesty, a lot of times the money from that just like basically supports the hobby.
Right.
But I mean, some people can go big and have that be their work, right? Like there are some yoga teachers where they go big with it. They don't keep a full-time job, and you can do that, right? Or you could write a book or something. Those are things that people do find their passion and go with it. But I think it's very smart to think about not having all your self-love eggs in one basket.
Absolutely. And honestly, I feel like that one quote where they say, no, it's gone. My brain is gone.
It's okay. We have ADHD, Liz. That kind of crap happens all the time. If it comes back, just interrupt me and be like, I remembered, and I'll stop talking.
You know that one quote that I can't think of?
That one quote that you can't think of about self-love with ADHD and not all your eggs in one basket.
I remembered it now. Okay. The quote is, if you feel like you're doing too much, it might be that you're actually doing too little of what lights you up or something like that.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite quotes.
Yes. And I used to always feel like I have no time. I don't have time for a hobby. I don't have time to do all the things that make me happy. I have too much going on. And honestly, I do way more now, but I don't do anything that I don't want to do. Yes. I'm doing all the things that I want to do. And it feels like I have plenty of time to do it all because it's the stuff I like.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and
I think that's key too.
I love that. And that's such good advice, Liz, because a lot of times what drains us with ADHD is doing things we don't want to do. And one of the biggest things I get asked is, oh, what are tips and tricks and tools and strategies? And I can give people all the best strategies and we can tailor them to each person. And that's not an important piece, but setting your life up in a way that you can do more of what lights you up and less of what sucks the life out of you and kills your soul. Like that is the big thing. We want to create this ADHD life that makes sense for us rather than continuing to live this way that everyone, probably the neurotypical folks in our life, nothing bad against them, but they probably told us to live that way or society did in one way or another. And it's like, yeah, like you raise a good point. It's less about how do I fit myself into this neurotypical box with all the right tools and strategies, and more about how do I make a life that I love and works for me.
Yeah. And I really have been following my whims.
Yeah.
I don't force myself to post on Instagram. I'll go days, weeks, and I'm just like, I don't care. If it sparks me, then I'll post 3 times in a day.
Yeah.
Because that's what I want to do. And that's how my brain works. And I like having multiple things that I can toggle to when I get bored with something. I'm like, okay, well, then I'll pay attention to this now. And then I'll pay attention to this now. And that's how we work. Instead of like
how we work,
hitting my head against a wall, trying to not be who I am, I'm just like going with it.
Yeah. It's like, this is who I am. And it doesn't have to be like in the asshole way of this is how I am, take it or leave it. But even just this is who I am. I'm going to stand in my love for myself, and you're welcome in, or you're welcome also not to have to be here. It reminds me of,
go ahead.
It reminds me of Glennon Doyle talks about how her and her wife, Abby, and their kids, they have like this island with a moat around it that they live on. And there are times when they lift the drawbridge and don't let certain people cross the moat. Right. And I don't want anyone crossing the moat who doesn't want to be in my life. Like, if you don't like Jen, no harm to you. That's okay. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I'm okay with that. I'm fully aware of my many different parts of myself and how I show up. And that's not that we're not on tracks for self-improvement, but it's don't bother to cross my moat, sisters or guys. If you like just can't be kind, compassionate, and loving and enjoy me for who I am and let me enjoy you for who you are. Right? Like,
exactly. And I think now I have such a better understanding and better ability to give myself compassion when I see myself in a situation where I am reacting a certain way, and I'm even able to explain it to my kids. I feel like I'm a better mom now that I know that I have ADHD, because I can say, honey, in that situation when, I was making dinner and the sink was running and it was hot in the house, and then you came at me with mommy, and then somebody else asked me something and I had just got done with work. It wasn't you that made me say, it was the sensory overload. And I can
Right.
explain to my kid, like, they had nothing to do with you. There was just too many things coming at me all at once. And I had to take a breath and then I could respond to you. But I didn't used to know why I would get irritated in those situations. I never paid enough attention even to what was happening in my body. I had such a disconnection between what was happening in my body my whole life and how I was behaving. And now I just notice it so much more. Okay, I am tense. I am hot. I am hungry. I
Yeah.
have to pee. All these things
Right.
that I'm like, I never even tuned in enough to know those things about myself. And now it's okay. I'm not angry. I have too much going on and I need to
I'm
breathe,
overstimulated.
change my shirt
Yep.
and go to the bathroom and eat a
Yep.
protein bar. And then I'm going to be
Yes.
great.
It's so true. And one of the things that I hear in that is by having self compassion, you're able to take personal responsibility.
Absolutely.
And that is such a gift. Not just, yeah, we want to take personal responsibility. It's nice. But also, when we take personal responsibility, we can heal and grow both in our own life, but our relationships improve. Not just like your relationship with your kids, it will improve, but think about the beauty of what you're giving them. You're teaching them that we don't have to try and be perfect,
Mm-hmm.
and we can own our stuff, and we can name, like, hey, you know what? When mommy had the water running, and I can't remember what you said. I was paying attention. It's just, I have the water running and this person's asking me this, and then you're coming at with me with mommy, and this person's asking me this. I'm like, but to be able to say that and name what's going on teaches them that they can do that for themselves.
Yeah, that's my hope.
Yeah, that they can communicate like, hey, this is what's going on for me, not from a place of making excuses or shame or self-loathing, but from a place of like, oh, this is just what's my experience is right now. Here's my intention. And I wonder if we can work on meeting that together,
Mm-hmm.
or here's your need, here's my intention. How can we work together to make this happen? Versus just kind of be like, oh yeah, sorry. Which I think it's important to apologize when we yell at our kids, but that's such a richer experience when we can give them that language of around naming our experiences and not being ashamed of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just very grateful to have the language now around it. Or even with my husband, it's like, so what I'm experiencing right now is rejection sensitive dysphoria. What I'm feeling in our interactions, or the thing that you're upset of me about, is actually a symptom of my,
Right.
neurological condition. So can you give me a little grace? Those types of things. So I think
Right.
it has been a really big blessing. It can feel like a blow when you're diagnosed late, but
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
probably, it happened on my birthday. I actually was diagnosed on my 35th birthday.
Oh my.
And
Okay.
I say it's like the best birthday gift I ever got or ever gave myself,
Oh,
because I kept digging and I finally found an answer that helps me explain everything. And it's been quite a journey since then, but I'm looking forward to continuing to learn about myself and continuing to follow my whims and go where
yeah.
the wind blows me.
That is so cool. So, what? I was thinking, you talked about having this diagnosis and then you're laid off. And I wonder, did you share your diagnosis with your employer? What do you think about people sharing their diagnosis with prospective clients or employers? Like, I wonder if you'd unpack that a little bit.
There's so much there.
Yeah. Because
Um,
you're talking about the gift of it.
yeah,
And I'm really curious about where that was hard.
it there's it still feels very risky, which is sad.
Yeah.
But I think up until this point, even me, what I understood about ADHD is so wrong and so different than what it really is.
Yeah.
You think of kids that can't pay attention or slackers or
Squirrely
and like
boys.
I was like obsessed with doing well. I was always getting good grades. I was like a high achiever and I have a high level of attention to detail, almost like too far the other way. And so I think it's like I'm afraid to say this is what I have and then have them rely on whatever knowledge or preconceived notions they have about what that means. However, I do think that had I known sooner and been able to ask for maybe certain accommodations or been able to explain to people like the way you're asking me to do this doesn't compute with my brain, or here's how I might approach this because I think a little bit differently. Had I had the confidence or the knowledge to be able to do that, I may have performed better and I may not have been the one that they picked to get rid of from my team.
Yeah,
so
you'll never know.
I think about that a lot, but I'm glad. I feel like the universe was pushing me toward bigger and better things, and I have no real regrets. But I think that it's one of those things where I'm like, now I'm in a new job. I have a clean slate. Is this a safe place to tell them? So I've started and dipping my toes in. I joined an employee resource group for neurodiverse people.
At
so
your employer?
At my current employer, yes, which is awesome.
Whoa.
It is so great. Yeah. There's a lot of
Amazing.
places say they're all about inclusivity.
That's true. And then
individuals still have their biases against people with ADHD based on what they know. So it's I'm sharing it slowly with small groups of people. But yeah, the ideal would be that I can tell everybody that I have ADHD and they still see me as a smart, capable contributor who is just as valued as anybody else, and that I don't need accommodations because I'm incapable. I need accommodations because I just do things differently.
Right.
So that would be the goal. But I think it's like we're inching there. It's not something that I have a perfect answer for, because I feel like there are benefits to sharing that information, because then you can hey, I need to take a break after I accomplish something and go take a walk so I can come back and do the next thing, or I need a certain work environment to be in, or whatever it is. I also think there are still some risks, which is scary and sad. But I think that's part of why I want to be a voice.
Yeah.
Let people know that I think there shouldn't be a stigma, because I feel like everybody has something going on. It's not just ADHD or autism. There's people with trauma. There's people with anxiety. There's people who are dealing with a lot of different things. So when you put all that together, I feel like everybody has something. I think the world should just accept that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, of course, believe that too. And I'm excited for that day. And you raise a good point that even in organizations that overall seem to be very mindful and intentional and welcoming to people that maybe see things differently, which even the word differently, it's like different from what? Like, why does ADHD have to be the wrong way?
Why are
the
we the different way? Ones? Yeah.
But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But it has me thinking about what you said about sometimes individuals are inside an organization, even if the organization has this amazing neurodivergent resource group, which sounds like lovely. It got me thinking about how, whether you're in an organization that is like what Liz has, or you are in an organization that even like from on high or whatever, there isn't that support. There are ways you can still talk about how your brain works without outing yourself as ADHD if it doesn't feel safe. And I heard you say things like, hey, I'd love to do that project for you. My brain works, or the way I think about things, or the way I work, or the way I do projects is more like this. And instead of making excuses for it, which certainly you weren't doing, we're just saying, oh, just like with your kids, oh, this is how mommy's brain works. I can't have 50 million things happening at the same time. Doing the same thing with your employer. And if you're in a situation where naming that it's because of ADHD or related to ADHD, that like that piece of information can be left out. You can say, oh yeah, I would love to do that. Here's how I tend to work. Here's how I think about things. Here's how I function best, or maybe not even the word function, because that can be a red flag too. But that's a really nice thing to give people in terms of how do I communicate when I need to do things the way that work for me without having to be like, I have ADHD. Because a lot of people still see ADHD as like a dysfunction or a mental illness. And while ADHD is in the diagnostic manual, neurodivergence isn't to me a mental illness. It's just our brains are wired differently. And I suppose you could say that though about other things like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, their brains are wired differently. But just sticking with ADHD, so much of it is we're not bad, wrong, or messed up or even dysfunctional. We just don't do things the way that society is set up. And so
I think that's really awesome. I never thought of doing that, where you actually ask for what you need without having to label yourself. I think that is
but you did it.
Cool.
But you did it in your job. You said, hey, I'd love to do this for you. This is how I work.
Yeah, I wish I had done it more.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 Because I think I struggled within the guardrails of doing things the way I thought they were supposed to be done.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was as successful as I could have been.
And I can't help but wonder, Liz, if some of that comes from confidence over time in our abilities versus shame and self-loathing around the things that are challenging for us because of the world we live in.
Absolutely.
I think as we have confidence, oh, this is just Jen's way of doing things. This is just how I roll. And then that's just, here I am. Like, or this is Liz. Like, I'm Liz. Here I am. Maybe we don't say it like that. But as we're more comfortable in our own skin, then perhaps we're more confident in just saying, oh, yeah, I can do that. But here's how I'll do it.
Absolutely. And I feel like I'm getting there. And it was like my diagnosis, treating my ADHD has given me a lot of confidence, because now I'm like, I feel a little bit more in control of the things around me and my life.
Yeah.
And having confidence to be unmasked.
Yeah.
I'm finding now I'm having more confidence because I don't have to hide stuff. And I used to feel like there were 20 different Lizzies out there. And I had to think of who I needed to be depending on where I was or who I was with. And now all of those Lizzies are converging into just me. Yeah. So I think that is like the most beautiful part of self-discovery and understanding yourself, is that you can just be you and you don't have to be anything else.
Yeah, which is so beautiful. Yeah. I have so many other questions. I also am aware that when you get people together with ADHD, we could probably talk for like days, and then
you just have to have me back again. Okay.
I'll just have to have you back. I know, Lizzie, that would be great. I could have you back again and we could keep talking, because there's so much about that when we can show up authentically as ourselves. It's just beautiful and important. She's fun and funny, and I love your Instagram posts. I'm not as active on LinkedIn anymore right now. I was super active, and then I focus more on Instagram and TikTok, but I love your posts. They're just so fun to laugh. And they're also, you can feel the self-compassion coming out, which then reminds us all to be compassionate towards ourselves and let ourselves rediscover more of who we are. So I just think it's beautiful, Lizzie. I'm so grateful you came on the show today. Thank you for being here.
I'm so grateful you had me. This was really, really awesome and really fun. So I'm happy to know you, and I can't wait to get to know some of your listeners as well.
Cool. Thanks again, Liz. So thank you so much for being here. And I just want to say, if you're one of our listeners, make sure you're subscribing or following wherever you catch your podcast. Also, you've been listening to me talk about the ADHD Entrepreneurs Women Kickin' Ass program, which is like launching now. Like, it's available for sign up now. I'm only opening it to 10 foundational members. So if you're an ADHD woman having your own business, trying to grow your own business, but you just feel like your ADHD is keeping you stuck and making it hard for you to help as many people as you want to or grow your revenue, I would love for you to sign up. So I'll put the link in the show notes so you can check it out. So make sure you follow. Take care. All right.